So thank you all for joining us for Learn from a Bioscience Expert today. This is a student webinar put together by LAEDC, the Los Angeles Regional Consortium, and our guest, Dr. Abgaryan from Grit Gene Therapeutics. So I am part of the LAEDC team, and joining us today is also Jose Pelayo, my colleague, who is the program manager. And our director also forms part of the team. His name is Jermaine Hampton. A little bit about what we do at LAEDC and our initiatives is through the LA19 partnership. We empower students through industry education partnerships by strengthening talent development ecosystem. So we do this work through data-driven research, industry councils, program advisories, work-based learning opportunities, such as the one we're having today, and through a workforce and education partner portal, which can be found at the link on your screen, competitiveworkforce.la. At the end, we'll have a feedback poll. So now we'll go ahead and pass it along to Dr. Lucy Abgaryan, who is joining us again from Grit Gene Therapeutics. Thank you, Dr. Abgaryan, and thank you all for joining today.
Thank you, Mariana. It's my pleasure to join and to perhaps bring a little more awareness about what is bioscience, what is biotech industry, and how it's doing in LA. I am myself new in LA, just recently moved from San Diego. And I think this is fascinating time in Los Angeles community for biotech, since some significant developments are happening here. In general, I would like to talk about biotech in general for giving a little picture of what do we understand under bioscience, right? It's quite a wide area industry that has a huge economical impact, not only in US, but globally also. Under biotech, I am understanding pharmaceutical industry, I'm understanding therapeutic industry, I'm understanding analytical science, testing, clinical research, and also heavy involvement of academia and research. So it has both parts. It has nonprofit academical research part, and it has industrial part for sure. In terms of academic bioscience, biotech, I think LA has a good input in global bioscience coming from institutions like UCLA, Caltech, USC, Lundquist Institute is here, not so far. And also we have a couple of big, good institutions, industrial institutions, such as Amgen is here, Kite Pharmaceuticals has presence in LA area. And there are a couple number of other big, well-known names. Takeda has a presence here as well. And there are some small, not that much known institutions that are in Los Angeles, but luckily we are seeing growth of the community. And I think it's very important that we have also the work pool, the employee pool also developing parallel, so that the needs of the employers are satisfied in this area, and they don't need to move somewhere else where there is a better employee pool. And I think for that, it's very critical, the involvement of community colleges, four-year colleges, and other educational institutions, and even from starting from high school level, perhaps. In terms of career opportunities, it's very wide, right? It's there is biotech is one of these institutions, machineries that can provide both remote type of work opportunities as well as in-person work opportunities. So people who are in favor of each one of those can have opportunities for themselves. There is opportunity to do something hands-on in wet labs, and there are a lot of administrative opportunities in biotech. There is the R&D, the research and development, and the research and development teams, usually they don't have need, or they have actually a need of many levels. You don't necessarily have to be a PhD to be able to take part in R&D processes. There are many lab tech level works, and there are also a lot of growth opportunities when you are in this industry. There are regulatory work opportunities. So if somebody is interested more in regulations, not being in the laboratory, but more working with federal regulations, regulatory bodies, with state regulatory bodies, there are opportunities in this field. If somebody has a desire to be in innovative field, innovations are a big time thing for biotech industry. In nowadays, the digital and old good science are in an intersection right now, meeting, and new developments are going to happen. And here, I think a lot of workforce can become actually from community colleges to fulfill the needs in this area too. Data science, it's one of the areas that biostatistics, data science, that we have a shortage here. And that's one of the highest paying jobs actually globally. I mean, if you look how much hourly rates are for good biostatisticians, and it's not that hard to gain those skills. I think those are things that, and you don't need to have a PhD, master's for that. All is needed is just the skill set, basically. And I'm pretty sure those are type of skill set that can be given through community colleges. Also there are, as in any other industry, there is the clinical trial, there is the management part, there is the operations, supply chain management, marketing. So all of these other disciplines also are needed here to come to support for the full development of the industry here. And so here, I think it comes to the part of understanding and defining for ourselves, right, as a students, like, what do we want? What are our needs? Do we want to be part of a big company, or do we want to be part of a small company? Do we want to be part of a well-known institution, or are we okay to be part of something that's not known? It's a startup, for example. And I can kind of give the cons and pros for both. So for example, in bigger institutions, at least when you put it on your resume, moving forward, it's a known place. Everybody can recognize, okay, this person is working for Johnson & Johnson. Doesn't matter what they have done. But if you put a startup company, nobody will know about this company. However, the other side, the flip side of it is that when you are working for a bigger company, you are going to do very narrow, small thing. And a lot of times, though, in a big companies, people will be siloed. So they will just have their task, they will do their task, and they will a lot of times not even have an exposure to other functions of the institution. But when you are working in a startup company, you have to put all different heads. You are getting to know all the levels, from the very basic level of the work that's being done all the way up to the most executive, and the exposure to external world is also being more accessible for those, and the growth is happening much faster. So everyone can find, I mean, that's a great, to me, that's a great place to go and even understand, especially when you are a new freshly graduate college student. It's hard to understand really what you want to do with your career, right? Because you haven't had that exposure. And going to the company where you can be at different parts, or at least see different parts of the functions, it will give you a sense of understanding. You know what? I don't want to be on a bench and do certain type of work, pipetting, mixing, making buffers, but I want to be working with the financial group, or I want eventually to work with VCs. Now, I mean, if it might sound very strange and very different, but VC is also like working for investment organization, financial organizations can be also biotech related. There are so many people who are with biotech background working for VCs because financial people cannot evaluate if the incoming projects are worth something or not. So there is a need for people who understand biotech well in those organizations as well. Or maybe somebody is thinking that, oh, you know what, I like better the digital technologies and I want to be involved in those aspects of the work. And there is an opportunity doing that as well, like bringing some engineering background into use here. And also another aspect that also like I like to put together is academia versus industry. And they have its own cons and pros again. So here it's like the number one thing is going to be the compensation. If you are looking for if the number one goal is higher compensation, definitely you have to look for a job in industry. If you are looking for more mellow, laid-back type of work environment, academia can be the place. If you are eager to do something in fast-paced, startup world is going to be the place to look for something. If you just want to be unnoticed, big company is going to be the places that you want to go. And also there is another factor that needs to be weighed in. Stability versus pay is another factor, because if you are in a bigger institution, academic institution, and you have a main position, not grant-based position, then stability is there. The pay is going to be significantly low. However, you know that you don't have to worry about looking for another job or building some other skill sets. That's the place to be. Versus if you want to have higher pay, there are chances the projects, like the new emerging projects, are getting financing. You will get into that field, you will get paid really high, but then after a few months, something better might come up. They will close this project, they will hire new people, and they will let go whoever was working on the current one. So there are the risk factors of that as well. In terms of understanding what is, I think bringing all of this into one picture and understanding what we want to do is going to be very essential. Like why are we looking? And I think that's common for any industry, not only in biotech, right? Do we want to do, what are our driving forces for landing a job? Do we want, is it due to financial need? Is it due to keeping ourselves busy? We just want to have something to go out from home, do something, and then come back home, keeping ourselves busy? Or do we want, or we are unhappy with our current job situation, the culture, or what we are doing, or people we are working with? Or is there like lack of fulfillment? Maybe we are doing something, but we are not feeling fulfilled. So those are like type of questions. We want a career growth and it's not happening. So those are all type of questions that we have to ask ourselves. And so all of those questions can be valid for different people, right? And eventually, like having this list, it can direct us, okay, for this type of situation, this is the direction that we need to go. This is the type of job we want to do. Once we have found what is our driving force, again, like if we want to work from home, for example, right? I mean, then definitely we cannot do any lab tech type of work, wet lab works. Then we have to look into more administrative positions. We have to work, we can do work with regulatory fields. We can do work with finances, biotech related finances. But if we want to be in the laboratory and grow there, one of the I'm seeing here in LA, most of the positions that I have seen being hired from community college level are QC positions, for example. For quality control, a lot of industries are hiring. And for that, however, being on the site will be necessity a lot of times, so remote work will not work. Also, another thing is like for remote works in biotech, that there is a chance to work globally, which is, I think, fantastic. To work for different organizations that are not only in Los Angeles, there might be in different states, even in different countries, and especially for the biostatistician positions. Those are amazing opportunities to do. For me, it's a little hard to estimate what is the college graduate level, community college graduate level, or what's the level of experience of them working in the laboratories, to be able to assess more accurately, like what positions they can start with, what level they can start with. But I think this is something that can be done through different organizations in Los Angeles, including LAEDC, trying to work directly with the colleges and do the assessment with them and understand what are the lagging parts from industry perspective, and basically suggest colleges to do that fulfillment so that college graduates can be employment ready, basically, for all of these categories that I am mentioning. I know in terms of when people are looking for work, and I have talked with different students about this recently, it seems like there is no channel where they can also go and find the right positions, and the positions are available actually. But most of the students, unfortunately, they would go to big organizations, like, for example, Amgen, Takeda, Kite Pharmaceutical, like well-known names, for seeing if there are any job openings or not. However, there are other industries, other institutions that are looking for people, but for some reason, students will not look into more general channels for the job opportunities. I think that's another thing that for landing a job, that's another thing to consider, to look in a wider lens to see where these opportunities are. I know in California, another industry, another area that's emerging, and it is basically also an arm of biotech, is the cannabis industry, which is like testing laboratories are exactly like scientific laboratories that you would have in any other biotech industry. And California currently has the highest, probably the most strict regulatory terms for those industries. And there is a need for employees in this field. That's definitely another aspect. And again, I think here we have to again, I think some type of collaboration has to happen between colleges and industry to understand the lagging parts, the missing parts for the education that will be complete, so that the student can directly go from college to this industry to land these jobs. And I think in terms of how to make your resumes, right, attractive, I have mentioned this before, I'm definitely not a resume specialist. However, I can look at this and answer from perspective of someone who is hiring. When I'm looking at resumes, for me, it's very important to understand, to see that the resume is honest. It's not about how many pages there are, and usually shorter the better. It's be very honest, like let it be very honest representation of yourself. And also, if you want to do certain things, emphasize those things in the resume. It will give an understanding to the, like, don't put everything that you have done, especially when you are a college student, right? It's understandable that you haven't done a lot. And when I see a resume of a college student who, like, that is like 3-page, it's very, I cannot really filter and understand your skill set. But when I'm having a resume of a professor coming from university to work in industry in a company, and the resume is a 1-page, barely 1-page, I mean, when I'm putting this in comparison, but it's understandable. It comes with experience too, right? You want to make sure that someone is catching all of your skills, but make sure you are emphasizing the right ones. You are not putting any additional thing so that we don't have to filter through ourselves. You do the filtration. Give us the most important. And I think cover letter can be really helpful also in those cases, where you can say, this is what I have done, this is what I can do, but really my dream is this, for example. Because maybe not for that opportunity, for instance, but for another opportunity, we will look back and say, you know what, there was this person who was interested into doing this. And it's from employer perspective, when you have an employee who is doing something that they really like, it's going to be very rewarding. Going to be rewarding for the company and for the employee. If they do something that they want to do, but not they have to do, is going to be more productive. So I think that's one of the suggestions. And also another suggestion that I have for students is to reach out to organizations. And there are organizations that are helping basically to match employer and employee, such as like Bioscience LA has the BioFuture internship program, for example. I think that's a fantastic opportunity to basically safely try and see if you are liking this type of work or not. And they have probably one of the best connections and networks in Los Angeles area, so they can definitely find those even smaller organizations who are not highly marketing themselves and they are off of the radar mostly, but they can definitely reach out. I know there is also the Nucleate and the Biotech Connection LA that are doing a good job on networking. And I think it's very important. I have been in a couple of networking events and I haven't seen much undergrad students actually on these events, mostly like postdocs or PhD students are attending. And I think it's very important to understand what type of events are happening and try to have access to this, try to see these people. That will give a sense of understanding also, do you want to be part of that community or not? So those, I think, would be my suggestions and my perspective on biotech science. If you have any questions, I think that's more important for me to answer the questions that you have.
Doctor, I do have a question. Can you give us a little bit of your background and how you got into the bioscience field?
Definitely, yes. So my undergrad is in physics. My master's and PhD are in biophysics, and my postdoctoral training is in experimental medicine. I did my postdoctoral training at Scripps Research Institute, where I thought it was going to be a pit stop for me until I'm understanding what I want to do. But it ended up being a long long ride, very successful ride, I have to admit, in terms of I was lucky to be part of a team that was developing drugs, and I was able to be part of one project that has now FDA approved drug that got approved in 2020, which is very rare for scientific career to have it. And I was part of that full ride. And then 2 of my postdoctoral projects ended up in clinical trials. Now they are in clinical trials, phase 1 and phase 2 accordingly. And then after that, I decided that I want to also obtain a business degree and understand the business side of the things. And I did my MBA at UCSD and started working with different startup companies in US and globally. And now I have co-founded 4 startup companies. GridGen is number 4. So that would be like a shortcut of it. And see, even like for someone who has a PhD, when I was going to do my master's, people were saying like someone with PhD, why would do a master's degree in business? But for me, it's important to always self-reflect and understand what we want to do, what is going to make us more happy, and which also is, for me, it's equal to being productive too. So, and back in the day, when I was student, that was an era of scientific disciplines merging together. Before that, it was biology, it was physics, it was chemistry. Then there was a time it was biochemistry, biophysics, biomedical engineering, right? I think now it's time where the non-scientific disciplines and scientific disciplines should merge. By merging, I mean bringing together these skill sets, right? Somebody with business skill set and scientific skill set will make a better understanding of the things, for instance, or like finance and science. I mean, all of these disciplines can come together. That's why you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be great at chemistry to be able to be a big contributor for biotech development.
Thank you, Dr. Abgaryan, for sharing some of your background. We have a question in the chat. Is there anything that you would recommend high school students do? We do have some participation from high school students as well. So what would you recommend to those students?
I think try to find internships. Try to find internships. Like when I was at Scripps Research Institute, almost every summer we had a high school student coming and doing internship with us. And I know people who decided that they are going to science after those internships, and I know people who like went into animation industry after doing scientific internships. So it's an amazing way of understanding, and not only in science. Let's say if you want to do science, the same. I have a high school. My daughter is in high school, so. I tell the same to her, like, you go try whatever comes to your mind, try to find internship for this, like go to law office, I don't know, do some type of paperwork there, go to different nonprofit organizations, do like work there. Like, so you have to have a sense of culture of different places to better understand what is dear to you, what's close to your heart, what makes you happy, where you get your fulfillment.
Thank you. And we also have another question. So from Crystal, we have, which science fields would you recommend that require the minimal physics requirements?
Physics.
So to avoid physics, which field can they go into or to take the least amount of physics?
Right. I think if you do data science, for example, math, it's going to be a heavy load of math. In biology too, like you don't have to have like there are different parts of biology. And again, I don't know how the college structure is in terms of do you do general biology when you graduate from community college, or can you have like immunology, microbiology, or like different disciplines? So I think biology would be also one. Probably chemistry and physics would be more connected to to my understanding. But and math can take you anywhere. Like there is no discipline that or no industry that math is not needed. So if that's a strong suit, definitely consider doing through that.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for their questions. So we have another question in the chat. Do you have a recommendation for adults who have returned to school but still have to work? Unpaid internships haven't been an option for me for financial reasons. And I know you mentioned, Dr. Abgaryan, the Bioscience LA BioFutures program, which is one of the few that you mentioned. BioFutures is paid. It is a paid internship, so just wanted to throw that out there. But if you have any thoughts on that, Dr.
Yeah, I
Abgaryan.
think that's a fantastic place to start. But they will definitely know how to connect if you want to do through internships. But I'm also thinking that perhaps there might be industries or institutions where might need some type of part-time workers who can do like later shifts, for example. And that can be an option of someone who is like trying to work and learn something new and having a family, like working like, I don't know, 2 hours or 4 hours. That can be an option too.
If I can add to it, and great point, Doctor. A lot of the companies, what's happening right now is they're in need. So there's a lot of companies that are willing to hire part-time or graveyard shift. We kind of work with your schedule as well. Mariana also mentioned the BioFutures, but there's also a resource called Americans Job Centers of California. They're across the LA County. So you can go through to your local Americans Job Center of California, and they can help you as well find a part-time, a permanent employment job that works with your schedule as well.
I think one thing that it comes to my mind, and recently after we had that meeting at the Bioscience LA actually a couple weeks ago, it is like we have to start some type of tight interaction with colleges, and maybe like biotech industry can start outsourcing small projects to the community colleges where they have some type of laboratory setups. And that can kind of bring in students more closer how it is to work in biotech.
Yeah, I know LA Mission has a great program. They actually have, connections with employers where they have short-term certificates, but there's 19 community colleges across the LA region for those high school students that offer programs within that field that can get you into the entry-level position that can have you making sustainable wages. But that's a great point, Doctor.
Thank you. So if anyone has any more questions, I know there was a suggestion here from Mel. What about looking at the job pages of bio companies to see what they are looking for specifically, like supply chain management, and go get a degree in that subject? So thank you for your comment, Mel. If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat. I also shared the link for the BioFutures program, which you can click on and visit in your own time, but I'll also follow up in an email and share the recording and the links as well.
If I can add something here to Mel's point, actually, that's a great suggestion. I think the shortcoming here is that a lot of people don't know more than 60-70% of the biotech companies. So usually we know the big names that have been advertised, but I think there are significantly more job opportunities in companies that people are just not aware of the existence. So I think that's where we have a discrepancy. That's where we have to kind of think how we can connect dots so that it's accessible. There is a channel where students have access to all of that. Yeah, I read Mel's comment because we don't care what the concise subject is, so we need to go look for it. Yes and no. In biotech, there are a lot of companies that are in invisible mode. They don't want to put out there what they are doing. That's one of the things, because of the IP and because of how long it takes for the technology to get into the market. So a lot of times we don't even advertise what we are doing.
Thank you, Dr. Abgaryan. I know Valerie also shared another comment that's part of my struggles. I'm very passionate about science, but I know I'm just not aware of all the opportunities to look into.
Yeah, those are good points for also the acquisitions. I mean, as I said, any type of discipline has a place here. So it cannot be done. All the evaluations for acquisitions and mergers are also being done heavily with the scientist involvement, I should say. But also this is the thing, I think we have to do something about the network and accessibility. That's the biggest problem that we have here in Los Angeles. And I was not having that feeling in San Diego. I felt like everywhere you go, something is happening. I didn't need to Google to understand what type of event was happening there. And also whenever I was hiring someone, I was getting like so many qualified resumes. Here you don't have it. And I don't think the problem is that there is no right pool, there are no right candidates. It's just like, I think there is a discrepancy between employer and employee. And I think that's what we need to do, the development of network where all of this information is accessible.
Yes, thank you. And that also is part of the reason why we bring about these webinars, to inform the students of the different opportunities, your career options, and even positions within a certain industry that might not come to mind at first. So when this recording is available, just for everyone on the call, you'll be able to see a list of different recordings of past webinars. And within that is a BioFutures webinar we had a couple of weeks ago. So you can watch that and learn about the requirements. And as Jose mentioned in the chat, they host several networking events throughout the year. So those are good options where they can connect you with employers firsthand. So those events, not only do they include, or are they extended to students, but also to employers. So it gives you an opportunity to, in an informal setting, be able to discuss with employers and learn about their needs and what they're looking for when they hire as well.
I think I can suggest 2 places somehow to get maybe on a mailing list to see what type of events are happening. One is Bioscience LA. I think Mariana already shared the link for that place. Get on the mailing list. It's okay to get spammed, but you will sometimes do your filtration, and like you will see worthy events to go for networking, and also see who are these companies representing this industry. And another place is the Hero House, which is in Glendale, where they are having different events where they are bringing different parts of the industry, including lawyers, accountants, finance people, technology people. And they were mostly tech heavy, deep tech, AI, machine learning. Recently, they have done the shift they have integrated into the biotech aspect of the things too. So those are the 2 places where I am learning that like some get-togethers, happy hours are happening on Friday evenings. I believe Hero House is having. So if you can go sometimes meet people there, that would be great for you to at least like get out there. And I think it's called Eventbrite, where I am getting also some events. When you put your preferences, I believe you will see events that are relevant to your preferences. and you can get notifications if something is happening too.
Thank you for those suggestions, Dr. Abgaryan. I'll also look for those links so that I can share them along with the recordings. So we'll share the Hero House link so you can sign up for those events as well if you're interested. If you have any last questions, please enter in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourself. Thank you everyone for your suggestions and your questions in the chat. We really appreciate it, and for your time, Dr. Abgaryan. We don't have any, let's see, we have. Let's see.
Yeah, I see the Biocom suggestion. That's true. That's a great resource. I just don't know if it's a paid or unpaid tool. That's why I didn't bring it up. I thought it might be a paid membership access. But
it actually isn't. I always refer students there. There's great resources where they can join different groups for the industry. One of the groups that I always refer my students to, if they're females, there's females in biotechnology group. So there's a lot of things that they can look into there as well, and also internships. Just a great information. Sorry,
yeah.
I just came in and
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I had no idea that it's unpaid. I know for companies you have a paid membership with Biocom, but I didn't know about like individual access.
yeah, and it also shows them all the companies that are in the California area.
And another place would be, since the female biotech was mentioned, there is Women in Biotech, WIB. That's an great organization tool to see like what they are doing, and also when you see who are in this organization, you also kind of discover the companies that are behind it. So that can be a starting point too.
Thank you. So we have another question. What kind of positions can people get with an AS degree in biotech?
So if we are talking about scientific position, it would be mostly like a scientific associate. But in nowadays, the growing from that position is very easy. A lot of things now are based on performance and not on degree. So I think the hardest thing is going to be getting your foot into somewhere, and then you can understand and navigate. And you can get into managerial positions, like going up the ladder too. And I know for some institutions, eventually, even they can support some type of education and certification processes too. So I would say like scientific associate or manager's assistant, something like that, depending if you want to do what lab work or administrative.
Hello.
Thank you, Dr.
I spoke with last year with the research director at Intuit in San Diego, and he said it doesn't matter what degree you have at all. He said the important thing is getting, just like you said, getting your foot in the door to do anything whatsoever, because the companies construct their research on the basis of the grants they're given. And so they have to change, no matter what their goal is, they have to change it to comply with the regulation requirements. And so they change in midstream, whatever they're doing, and they just take the people they have and they put them in these new slots. And so they don't even have time to advertise and get the best people. And he said, it really doesn't matter if you have a PhD or you don't, or if you went to Harvard or if you went to CSU. The important thing is if you're there all the time and you're reliable and they know you'll be there. That's what he said. So that's it. I gave up on an advanced medical degree for that reason, because I decided that it doesn't matter. I don't know if it was a good idea or not.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because and it's kind of, I don't know if it's a paradox or is it norm, but sometimes you see people coming from like less degree or less known university and perform much better, because I think they have to subconsciously prove that they were worth of being here doing something that was initially meant for example, for master's degree, like the advertisement was master's degree, but you hire someone with bachelor's or AS degree and associate degree, and they come and they do amazing things. And I have to admit that the lab skills that I have learned myself when I went to Scripps Research Institute, I consider this woman to be my mentor, who didn't even have a bachelor's degree. So when you have the experience, when you do things right way, when you learn as it goes, it's priceless. So I wouldn't worry about it, unless there are certain, for example, when I was doing MBA and there were people from managerial positions and I was like, why are you here? What are you doing? And for them, it was a requirement. They had a goal to get somewhere, and for that, it was requiring to have this type of degree. Or like doing PhD, if you want to have an academic career, yeah, PhD is probably the right direction to go. That's why it's very important to kind of analyze and understand what, like self-analysis, like what do you want? And I don't think degree is going to be that, like it's not going to be a hurdle in this situation. Look, like successful business people, most of them are college dropouts, so I would.
Thank you, Dr. Abgaryan. So we have another question in the chat. And this is, what are you familiar with the Association of Women in Science? And I will go ahead and, as you answer that question, I will launch the feedback poll. So if you see that on your screen, please take a moment to answer those questions. Thank you.
Yes, I am familiar with the organization, but I am not part of the organization.
Thank you, Dr. Abgaryan. So for those of you who see the poll on your screen, go ahead and answer those questions. It is anonymous. We just would like your feedback on these. And if you have any last questions, we'll take the last few questions out of respect for everyone's time, since we're nearing the end of our webinar. And again, Dr. Abgaryan, thank you for your time today, for speaking to our students and higher education partners.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, everyone. And if I can be helpful, I can be reached out on LinkedIn, definitely, for any reason, for network or for any other reason. Please don't hesitate, reach out.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and end the poll. Thank you, everyone, for taking a moment to answer those questions. We have some positive feedback in the chat already. So Dr. Abgaryan, again, thank you for such an informative session and for sharing a lot of your industry insight and personal experience. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to future collaboration.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Goodbye.